I tried fermenting my chicken's feed for 30 days. Here's what happened. Hey guys, I'm Taylor from Nose Cluck and Ashes. If you've never seen me before, I run a chicken education channel. Today I'm partnering with Grubly Farms to go over the benefits of fermented feed and how to do it at home to give it to your flock. If you've kept chickens for any amount of time, you've probably heard someone mention fermenting their feed, and honestly, when I first heard of it, it sounded like a lot of extra work for something that probably didn't make much of a difference. So for a long time, I didn't bother, and neither did a few people I know who kept backyard flocks. Then we all tried it, and by the 30-day mark, every single one of us was seeing the same things, and how much feed we were going through, and how the hens were behaving at the bowl, and in what was coming out the other end. So that is what this video is, what actually happens when you switch to fermented feed, why it happens, and how to set it up yourself so you can see it with your own flock. Wild yeasts are naturally present in the air and on the feed itself. When you cover feed with water, those yeasts get captured and start growing, kicking off a process that causes real chemical changes to the ingredients. What that process is doing is breaking down the sugars and starches into lactic acid bacteria, which multiply and make the feed significantly more nutritious than what you started with. The easiest way to think about it is like soaking seeds to start germination. You're waking the feed up, making it more alive before it goes into your hens. Whole grains work best here because they naturally carry some of those wild yeast, so the process kicks off faster and ends up stronger. Freshpeks is what I've been using throughout this. It's an all-natural whole grain feed, so it ferments really cleanly. Now that you know what is happening inside the jar, let me show you what it's doing inside your hens. The protein in the feed becomes more readily available for digestion, so hens are getting more out of every bite without having to eat more. Phosphorus becomes more digestible too, which drives proper calcium absorption, and calcium is what builds strong eggshells. The lactic acid bacteria promote probiotics in the gut, which strengthens the immune system and helps fight off disease. On the practical side, fermentation essentially doubles your feed content. The grains expand as they soak, so if your flock normally eats a pound of feed a day, you only need to ferment half a pound. Damp feed also does not get beaked out of the feeder the way that dry feed does, so there is less waste going straight to the ground. And because more nutrients are being absorbed, droppings come out drier and more compact, which means a cleaner coop with less work. So that is what it does. Let me show you now exactly how to make it because it's a lot simpler than what most people expect. Here's everything you're gonna need. Chicken feed, half as much as your flock normally eats in one day. A large glass jar, big enough to hold double the amount you are fermenting. A slotted wooden spoon, glass or plastic only, no metal near the ferment. Next, you're gonna want cheesecloth and a rubber band. Lastly, you're gonna need cool, unchlorinated water, filtered or well water if you have it. On day 1, in the morning, you're gonna wanna measure your feed into the jar and cover it with water by about 2 inches. So next, you're gonna wanna give it a stir. Then you're going to want to cover the mouth with your cheesecloth and a rubber band to keep it secure. Later in the afternoon, most of that water will have been absorbed. Add another inch and stir again, making sure everything stays submerged. By the evening, give it one more stir. The water should just be barely covering the feed, and you might already see a few small bubbles. So here's an example of what your fermented feed is going to look like on days 2 and 3. I started these previous to filming this video just so you can have a good example of what it's going to look like. From here, you're just stirring 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. By day 2, you will see more bubbles forming with each stir. That is the wild yeast getting active. By day 3, the bubbling is stronger and you will notice a sour, slightly yeasty smell when you open the jar. That smell is a really good sign. It's the same process that makes yogurt smell the way that it does. So one really important thing to note is on day 3, the feed may look like it has risen or soaked up extra water. Do not add more. Stir it first and it will settle. That rising means the fermentation is strong. So on day 4, this is what your fermented feed is gonna look like when it's ready to be served to your chickens. Active bubbles, thick consistency, strong, sour smell. That is what a good ferment looks like. To serve it, strain the feed into a bowl with a slotted spoon. If you are using Freshpeks, the pellets will have broken down into a thick mash. So just pour off any excess water on top and serve it as is. Before you clean the jar, save the leftover liquid. Add it to your next batch on day 1, and the second ferment kicks off much faster because the cultures are already in there. So I'm gonna go over some of the biggest factors that I've noticed with our flock and the differences that it's made for us. The first thing everyone notices is how the hens behave at the bowl. They go for it faster and stay at it longer. Less wandering away mid-meal, less feed left over at the end of the day. Around day 10, without fail, the droppings get drier and more compact. Every person I've spoken to about this brings that one up without being prompted. By week 3, most people are going through noticeably less feed per week than before. The next thing I've noticed is with the eggs themselves. The eggshells are really nice and strong, and also our yolk color is nice and consistently rich. So at this point, you've got the full setup: what fermentation is, what it does, and how to get your first batch going. If you want to try this with the feed I have been using throughout, Freshpaks is linked in the description. Whole grain, ferments cleanly, and it is what I have been running with for the last 30 days. I know it's a little bit of a routine change, but if you're on the fence, I urge you to try it. The first batch is the slowest part, and after that, you're just maintaining it. If you want a full weekly schedule for how to fit this into your routine without it taking over your day, that is all on Grubly Farms blog, link in the description alongside a printable step-by-step guide you can keep next to your feed. Freshpaks is linked there too if you want to start with the same feed I used. Drop a comment and let me know what your flock thinks when you try it, and if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button so you do not miss the next one.